Truth is the only thing that can set people free. Many believe that kindness is about making others feel good, about keeping them comfortable, about never challenging their choices. But real kindness is about leading people to what is right, even when it is difficult. Feelings are temporary, but truth is eternal. What good is it to make someone feel comfortable for a moment if, in the end, they remain bound by lies? What good is it to offer kind words if those words do nothing to bring real change? People today are taught to avoid hard conversations, to accept everything in the name of love, to never speak against anything for fear of offending. But truth is not meant to be hidden. It is not meant to be softened to the point where it loses its power. It is not meant to be changed just to fit what people want to hear. Truth is meant to set people free, and the only way it can do that is if it is spoken boldly and without compromise. There are many who would rather live in deception than face the discomfort of truth. They would rather be told they are fine as they are, that they never need to change, that their choices are acceptable no matter the consequences. They seek out voices that will affirm them, that will reassure them, that will tell them only what they want to hear. But affirmation without truth is not love. It is not kindness. It is a lie wrapped in pleasant words. It is a deception that keeps people from seeing the reality of their situation. It may feel good in the moment, but in the end, it only leads to destruction. There is a reason why truth is often rejected. It demands change. It calls people to a higher standard. It reveals things that many would rather keep hidden. It exposes lies, confronts sin, and challenges the false ideas that people have built their lives around. And for those who do not want to change, truth is seen as an enemy. They would rather be surrounded by voices that make them feel good than by voices that call them to what is right. But no amount of comfort can change reality. No amount of affirmation can erase the consequences of living in deception. Truth remains the same whether people accept it or not. People today are desperate for freedom, but many do not realize that true freedom only comes through truth. They chase after happiness, after fulfillment, after purpose, but they look for it in places where it cannot be found. They believe that if they can just follow their desires, they will find what they are looking for. But the more they pursue what feels good in the moment, the more they find themselves trapped. They are told that freedom means doing whatever they want, believing whatever they choose, living however they please. But real freedom is not found in following every desire. It is found in living by what is true. When people reject truth, they do not become free. They become slaves to their own passions, to their own weaknesses, to the lies they have been told. They chase after things that cannot satisfy, and no matter how much they indulge, they are never truly fulfilled. The only way to break free from this cycle is to embrace truth, even when it is hard, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it demands change. But truth cannot set people free if it is never spoken. That is why there must be those who are willing to proclaim it, who are willing to stand firm in it, who are willing to share it, even when it is not popular. Truth is not always easy to hear, and it is not always easy to speak, but it is always necessary. Those who love others will not withhold the truth from them, no matter how difficult it may be. They will not prioritize feelings over what is right. They will not allow fear to silence them. They will understand that real kindness is not about keeping people comfortable in their deception, but about leading them to freedom through truth. There will always be resistance to truth. There will always be those who reject it, who fight against it, who refuse to listen. But truth is not dependent on acceptance. It remains unchanged whether people embrace it or not. It is not something that can be altered to fit personal preferences. It is not something that can be molded to align with popular opinion. It is firm, unshakable, absolute. And those who are willing to stand for it, to proclaim it, to live by it, will find that while the world may resist them, nothing can overcome the power of truth. The world does not need more voices that simply echo what people want to hear. It does not need more false kindness that prioritizes feelings over reality. It needs boldness. It needs conviction. It needs people who are willing to stand in the gap, who are willing to speak what is right even when it is difficult, who are willing to shine light into darkness no matter the cost. Because in the end, only truth can set people free. Boldness has its place in a world that constantly pressures people to remain silent. There is a time for gentleness, a time for patience, and a time for quiet understanding. But there is also a time for strength, for speaking with authority, for confronting what must be confronted. Too many people today believe that being bold is the same as being harsh, that standing firm is the same as being unkind, that speaking with conviction is the same as being unloving. But true boldness is not rooted in anger or pride. It is rooted in truth. It is the willingness to say what needs to be said, to do what needs to be done, regardless of the consequences. There are moments in life when being gentle is not enough. When lies are spreading, when deception is leading people astray, when wrong is being paraded as right, silence is not an option. There is a time to be patient with those who do not understand, to guide with kindness, to correct with grace. But there is also a time to speak with force, to rebuke openly, to refuse to allow falsehood to continue unchecked. The world often praises those who stay quiet, who never make waves, who never challenge the status quo. It tells people that boldness is dangerous, that conviction is divisive, that it is better to go along with what is easy than to stand up for what is right. But nothing great has ever been accomplished without boldness. No real change has ever come from those who are too afraid to speak. Boldness is not recklessness. It is not about being loud for the sake of being loud or about pushing opinions onto others without wisdom. Boldness is about recognizing when the moment calls for strength, when the situation requires a firm stance, when truth must be spoken without apology. Too many people wait for the perfect moment to say something, the moment when no one will be offended, when no one will push back, when no one will misunderstand. But that moment never comes. There will always be opposition to truth. There will always be resistance to what is right. There will always be those who would rather remain in their deception than be confronted with reality. And waiting for the perfect moment only ensures that the moment is lost. A world without boldness is a world where truth is silenced. It is a world where people see evil but say nothing, where they recognize deception but do nothing, where they witness injustice but turn away because they do not want to get involved. It is a world where people believe that as long as they personally hold to what is right, it does not matter if they refuse to speak it. But truth that is not spoken is truth that is hidden, and hidden truth does not change anything. There must be people willing to stand in the gap, to raise their voices, to take risks in order to shine light into darkness. Those who are bold will always face opposition. They will always be met with resistance. They will always be misunderstood by those who do not want to hear what they have to say. But boldness is not about winning the approval of others. It is about being faithful to what is right. It is about understanding that the cost of silence is far greater than the cost of speaking. It is about refusing to let fear dictate actions, refusing to allow comfort to take priority over truth, refusing to let deception spread simply because confronting it would be uncomfortable. There is a time for gentleness, a time for soft words and quiet persuasion, but there is also a time for boldness, a time for unshakable conviction, a time for speaking with power and authority. Too many people today believe that strength is a negative thing, that certainty is arrogance, that standing firm is unkind. But without boldness, nothing changes. Without boldness, wrong continues unchecked. Without boldness, truth remains buried beneath the weight of fear and passivity. And when truth is buried, people suffer. The world does not need more people who are willing to blend in, who are willing to keep the peace at any cost, who are willing to let deception spread simply because it is easier than speaking up. The world needs people with courage, people who are not afraid to say what is true, people who refuse to be intimidated by the fear of rejection. The world needs boldness, because without it, nothing good can stand. Compromise is one of the greatest dangers in the world today. It does not come suddenly all at once in a way that is easy to recognize. Instead, it comes in small, subtle ways. creeping into people's lives and eroding their convictions little by little. It begins with the desire to fit in, to be accepted, to avoid conflict. It starts with justifying small choices, convincing oneself that a little compromise here and there will not make much difference. But compromise is never satisfied with just a little. It always demands more. What begins as a small concession soon turns into a pattern, and before long people find themselves standing for nothing, believing nothing, willing to go along with anything just to keep the peace. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to do what is right despite fear. It is the ability to stand firm in conviction when everything around is pressing in, demanding surrender. There is a cost to standing for truth. There is a price for refusing to go along with the crowd. It often means losing the approval of others. It may mean being misunderstood, ridiculed, or attacked. It may mean being left out, spoken against, or even persecuted. But those who truly value truth cannot afford to be ruled by the fear of rejection. They cannot allow their convictions to be shaped by the opinions of others. The cost of compromise is always greater than the cost of courage. There will always be pressure to conform. Society will always push people to accept what is false, to go along with what is popular, to embrace what is convenient rather than what is right. There will always be voices saying that it is better to stay silent than to make waves, better to avoid conflict than to stand firm. But history has shown that those who bring real change, those who make a real difference, are never the ones who bow to pressure. They are the ones who stand when others kneel, who speak when others remain silent, who hold the line when others retreat. Compromise begins with the desire to be liked. People do not want to offend. They do not want to be seen as difficult, unkind, or unloving. So they begin to soften their stance, to change their words, to adjust their beliefs to fit what is acceptable. At first it seems harmless, a little adjustment here, a small concession there, but little by little they begin to drift further and further from what they once knew was right. They begin to accept things they never would have accepted before. They begin to justify what they once knew was wrong, and before they realize it, they have abandoned the truth altogether, all for the sake of keeping the peace. The world does not need more people who are willing to go along with anything. It needs people who are willing to stand. It needs people with unshakable convictions, people who will not be moved by pressure, who will not be swayed by fear, who will not change their beliefs just to fit in. It needs people who value truth more than comfort, who are willing to speak when it is easier to stay silent, who are willing to hold their ground even when they stand alone. There will always be those who say that standing for truth is unkind. They will say that it is better to avoid conflict, better to let people believe whatever they want, better to keep quiet than to challenge what is wrong. But real kindness is not about making people feel comfortable. It is about leading them to what is true. Real love does not look the other way when people are walking toward destruction. Real love speaks up even when it is hard. Courage means refusing to compromise, even when it would be easier to do so. It means standing for what is right, even when others walk away. It means holding fast to truth, even when the world says to let it go. It is not always easy. It is not always popular. It often comes with a price. But the price of compromise is far greater. It leads to a world where truth is lost, where conviction is abandoned, where people trade what is right for what is easy. And in the end, no one is truly helped by that. The path of courage is not always comfortable, but it is always necessary. It requires strength, determination, and the willingness to face opposition. It requires the understanding that true kindness is not about avoiding conflict, but about standing firm in love. It requires the conviction to refuse to surrender to pressure, no matter how great it may be. And those who choose courage over compromise will find that, though the cost may be high, the reward of standing for truth is always worth it. Truth is often uncomfortable. It does not always bring peace in the moment, nor does it always make people feel good. Yet truth is the foundation upon which real kindness must be built. Too many people today believe that kindness is about avoiding conflict, keeping the peace, and making others feel safe and accepted at all costs. They have been taught that the highest form of love is making people feel good about themselves, regardless of whether or not they are living in alignment with truth. But true kindness does not ignore reality to preserve feelings. True kindness does not place comfort above what is right. There is a growing belief in the world that telling the truth is an act of cruelty if it makes someone uncomfortable. People are told that they should avoid saying anything that might be perceived as harsh, judgmental, or offensive. They are encouraged to affirm whatever someone else believes, even if that belief is leading them into destruction. They are pressured to agree, to stay silent, to smile, to nod, and to never under any circumstances challenge another person's choices. But what kind of kindness is this? What kind of love allows a person to walk straight into danger without a warning? When truth is sacrificed for comfort, people are not truly being helped. They are only being misled. Imagine a teacher who sees that a student is failing every subject but refuses to correct them because they do not want to damage their self-esteem. They allow the student to continue believing they are doing well, to continue thinking they will succeed, to continue walking down a path that leads to failure. This may seem kind in the moment, but in the long run, it is nothing but deception. The student may feel good temporarily, but the damage will become clear when they are unprepared for the realities of life. It is no different when it comes to morality, integrity, and righteousness. There are those who know the truth but refuse to speak it because they fear the backlash. They fear being labeled as judgmental, intolerant, or unkind. So they stay quiet when they should speak up. They soften the truth until it becomes unrecognizable. They choose the easier path, the more socially acceptable path, the one that does not require courage or conviction. They tell themselves they are being kind, but in reality, they are simply choosing comfort over truth. Many people today confuse affirmation with love. They believe that if they do not affirm every choice, every lifestyle, every belief, then they are being hateful. But real love does not mean agreeing with everything someone does. Real love does not mean encouraging choices that lead to destruction. If a person is standing at the edge of a cliff, real love does not tell them to keep walking just because they feel confident. Real love does not hand them a blindfold and tell them everything is fine. Real love warns them. Real love pulls them back. Real love tells them the truth even if they do not want to hear it. Truth has never been popular. Throughout history, those who stood for truth were mocked, ridiculed, rejected, and even persecuted. People do not like to be told they are wrong. They do not like to hear that they need to change. They do not like to be confronted with the reality of their own mistakes. And yet, without truth, there can be no real growth, no real healing, no real transformation. It is only when people are willing to face the truth, even when it is uncomfortable, that they can begin to move toward what is right. There is a reason why people resist the truth. It is because truth challenges them. It forces them to confront things they would rather ignore. It shines a light on areas they would prefer to keep in the dark. It calls them to a higher standard, a greater responsibility, a deeper level of accountability. And many people do not want that. They want to live however they please without consequences. They want to be told that everything they do is acceptable, that there is no right or wrong, that they never have to change. And when someone dares to speak the truth, they lash out, they become defensive, they accuse that person of being unkind. But their resistance does not change reality. It does not change the fact that truth remains truth, whether people accept it or not. Choosing truth over comfort is not easy. It requires boldness. It requires the willingness to be unpopular. It requires the strength to stand firm when others try to silence you. But those who truly care about others will not let fear hold them back. They will not trade truth for temporary approval. They will not allow false kindness to take the place of real love. Because in the end, it is not comfort that sets people free, it is the truth. False kindness is one of the greatest deceptions of our time. It wraps itself in soft words and gentle gestures, making people feel comfortable while leading them further away from the truth. It whispers, "Just be nice," and convinces the world that silence in the face of wrongdoing is an act of love. But this kind of kindness is not real kindness at all. It is a lie that keeps people bound to their mistakes, their sins, and their destruction. Too often, people believe that kindness means never upsetting anyone, never challenging them, and never pointing out where they have gone wrong. They think that avoiding difficult conversations is an act of mercy, but in reality, this kind of kindness is nothing more than fear. It is the fear of rejection, the fear of conflict, and the fear of not being liked. And when fear takes the place of truth, people begin to allow things they should never allow. They let deception spread, they let sin flourish, and they let evil grow unchecked, all in the name of being kind. Imagine a doctor who sees cancer in a patient but refuses to tell them the truth because he does not want to scare them. Instead, he smiles, pats them on the back, and tells them everything is fine. The patient may feel comforted in that moment, but what has the doctor really done? He has condemned them to a slow and painful death. That is not kindness. That is cruelty. And yet, this is exactly what happens when people refuse to confront sin, corruption, and lies because they want to be seen as kind. They allow the disease to spread while pretending that everything is fine. In many places today, people are being told that they must accept everything in order to be good, loving individuals. They are told that tolerance is the highest virtue, that judgment is the greatest sin, and that no one has the right to say what is right or wrong. But this is not true love. True love does not stand by while someone walks off a cliff. True love does not let a person drown while smiling at them from the shore. True love pulls them back even if they resist, even if they get angry, even if they do not want to hear it. History has shown us time and time again that when people choose comfort over conviction, societies fall into decay. When people refuse to stand against evil because they do not want to seem harsh, evil only grows stronger. The greatest atrocities in history were not committed because of a single act of wickedness, but because of the thousands who stood by and said nothing. They were too polite, too afraid of offending, too unwilling to bear the cost of speaking out. They told themselves that staying silent was the kinder thing to do. But their silence did not prevent suffering, it enabled it. The world today is filled with people who would rather be seen as kind than as right. They would rather be liked than be truthful. They have been told that to challenge wrong beliefs is unkind, that to stand against immorality is hateful, and that to call out lies is to be divisive. And so they shrink back. They smile when they should speak. They nod when they should shake their heads. They offer approval when they should offer correction. They tell themselves that they are being loving, but in reality, they are only allowing destruction to continue unchallenged. There is a great difference between true kindness and false kindness. True kindness comes from a place of love, but false kindness comes from a place of fear. True kindness seeks to help others, even if it is difficult, even if it is painful, even if it requires hard words and strong actions. False kindness seeks to keep people comfortable, even if it means leaving them in their ignorance. True kindness is willing to bear the cost of speaking the truth. False kindness is willing to let others suffer as long as it avoids conflict. This is why the world is in the condition it is today. People have confused kindness with approval, love with indulgence, mercy with compromise. They have told themselves that they cannot challenge wrongdoing because it would be unkind. But real kindness does not mean accepting everything. It does not mean turning a blind eye to sin. It does not mean letting people destroy themselves while calling it love. The truth is, kindness without truth is not kindness at all. It is deception, it is cowardice, it is a refusal to do what is right, because doing what is right often comes at a cost. And until people understand this, they will continue to allow false kindness to lead them down a path of destruction. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you today with a message that may sound shocking at first, but I urge you, open your hearts, open your minds, and hear what I am about to say. Stop being kind to everyone. Now, before you misunderstand, let me explain. We live in a time when kindness is praised as the highest virtue, and yes, kindness is good. Love, mercy, and compassion, these are gifts from above. But the kindness I speak of today is not the kindness of truth, not the kindness of righteousness. No, it is a weak, watered-down kindness that tolerates evil, excuses sin, and allows deception to spread unchecked. Too many today are afraid to speak the truth because they don't want to offend. They fear rejection, criticism, or conflict, so they stay silent when they see lies. They smile when they should rebuke. They offer a hand when they should take a stand. They call it kindness, but in reality it is cowardice. My friends, true kindness is not about making people feel good. It is about leading them to what is right. A doctor who refuses to diagnose a disease because he doesn't want to upset his patient is not kind, he is cruel. A parent who never disciplines their child because they don't want them to feel bad is not kind, they are neglectful. And a society that refuses to confront sin because they don't want to appear harsh is not kind. It is lost. You cannot be kind to everything and everyone. You must take a stand. If something is evil, call it evil. If something is wrong, say it is wrong. Do not let false kindness be the reason you compromise. There is a time for gentleness, but there is also a time for boldness, a time for comfort, but a time for peace, but also a time for war against the forces that seek to destroy truth. So I say to you today, be kind, but do not be weak. Love, but do not be blind. Show mercy, but do not enable sin. Stand for truth even when it is unpopular, for in the end, it is not false kindness that saves. It is the truth that sets us free.